Okay, welcome everybody. It's Monday, September 12th, 2022, or Tuesday, September 13th, depending on where you're sitting. Hi, Donna, welcome.
Mhm.
Hi, Nicole.
Uh,
And this is the Open Hearted Practice Group with Jori and Jim. And we're reunited. How are you, Jori?
I actually had a great time, even though I went to the East Coast for surgery for my sister. The three of us, because they both live on the same block, the three of us had a together. The operation was very successful. It was quick. She was up and about within a couple days, and we got to play, and I even got my nails done.
Yeah,
And you, how are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Yesterday, I was out in the yard picking papayas, and that involves standing underneath papayas with this long pole. And I managed to accidentally stab one of the papayas. And so some of the papaya, it was called papaya milk, came dripping down out of the papaya and hit me right here in the eye,
Mm.
which looks like Jory gave me a black eye a little bit. It's getting better now, but
Yeah, he's good at lying when I hit him.
and so I'm recovering from that. It
Yeah.
was not pleasant to have papaya latex stuck in my eye for a while,
Mm.
but I'm better now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So if you're here for the first time, we're really glad that you're here. I'll say a little bit about what we do in this class to give you a little orientation. Um, this is a practice group in nonviolent communication. Nonviolent communication being a process, practice created by Marshall Rosenberg about 50 years ago now. And Jory and I have been certified trainers for a little over 20 years. And we have been doing a practice group for that whole 20-year period of time. And even before we were certified trainers, we started doing practice groups because we realized that if we were going to learn and integrate NVC, the best way to do it would be to operate a practice group because then we would be practicing every week.
Yeah, that's an invitation for all of you to do that, actually.
Yeah, go ahead and start one. That's the
Yeah.
best way to learn.
Yeah, you teach best what you most need to learn.
All you need is two or three people, and you can
Mhm.
take whatever we offer you here and share it with other people, including the handouts and stuff like that, if that's helpful for you. So, so what we mean by practice, there's three different ways that you can practice nonviolent communication. One way would be self-empathy, and we'll have a experience of that in just a minute. Maybe Jory will do the self-empathy today, since she wasn't here last week. And I'll make the small groups because after the self-empathy practice, then we'll go to small groups where you get a chance to practice the other two ways you can practice nonviolent communication: honesty and empathy. So that'll be a very short little practice, about 10 minutes or so. We just kind of get to check in with people about how, and we'll give you the check-in questions before you go to the small group. And that'll just last about 10 minutes. Then when you come back here, we'll hear from a few people in the large group. Then there's a bit of a lesson today about beginning the process of integrating these 9 skills that we've been working on. There'll be a review. So if you haven't been here or you missed a class, we'll briefly cover all the pieces. You don't need to know the details. You'll get a chance to practice later. And then we'll talk a little bit about requests. We've been working on requests the last couple of weeks, and we'll just extend that clarity a little bit more because it's clear, it's the ability to make requests that make the using the 9 skills so fluid and generally easy for people. It's a really easy way to practice and learn NVC. And so we'll do some more practices along the way, probably another small group. At the end, we'll have a chance to get feedback from you about what you like and if you have any advice for us. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started, and Jory can lead us in the self-connection exercise, if you're willing.
Sure. Yeah, the most important relationship you have is your relationship with yourself. So this is an opportunity to have some self-connection. And I'm going to invite you with a few places where you can point your attention to support that. And so just in this moment, just notice as you look around in your environment. And just make sure you're safe so that you can really go inside and connect. Just notice. Are you safe? Of course, if you don't feel safe right now, that would be your highest priority, but I'm guessing since you're sitting in front of a screen, you feel pretty safe. And then just take a deep breath and let it out at your own pace. And then again, a couple more times just to allow yourself to feel yourself breathe, breathing deeply and releasing. And then notice what it feels like around your heart. You can put your hand there if you like, just to notice. Your heart is beating. Just feeling that life inside of you, that ongoing rhythm of breathing. It happens even without much effort, for the most part, probably now. And then consider, what's one thing you feel grateful for in your life? Maybe it's a person or a pet or just something in your environment. Just think of something that you appreciate. Just savor that. Noticing again what it feels like inside of you to touch your connection to this savoring piece. And then think of one thing that you've done to bring this into your life. It could be something just as simple as you look around or you showed up, or maybe it's something else that you did to bring this precious piece into your life. Just connecting to your capacity to bring something into your life that you savor. Even if it's just you showed up, you did it. And you've shown up here, right here in this group, this place where you belong, right here, right now. You are welcome here. And are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in a moment, well, let's start by just looking around. Just look around at who we are here. Your community. I know I feel very grateful that you're here in my community. Just notice. And in a moment or two, you'll have an opportunity to connect with a couple of other people. Generally, there'll be groups of 3. You'll have an opportunity to connect with people, some people here. And I invite you to share your name with each other, how you feel, and also share, why did you choose this? Why did you choose to spend your time here today in this group? And have an opportunity to listen to each other, share the space equally, about 3 minutes each to speak. Maybe you even can put in a timer for yourself, have someone let the people who are speaking know that their 3 minutes are up, so that everybody has a chance to be heard. And there'll be a timer. Did you put the little timer up there?
The timer will be there.
Okay, there'll be a little timer that you'll be able to watch, and we'll let you know 1 minute before. You want 1 minute or 2 minutes?
Well, it'll be 1 minute.
1 minute before we're going to close the group, there'll be something that shows up on your screen to let you know.
You don't need to do anything. You can
No.
just ignore it, and
Right.
you'll automatically come back to the main room.
And I let you know that just so that you're not shocked if you happen to be talking and it closes. You'll have some idea that this is coming up. So
Okay.
with that,
So you'll be gone for about 10 minutes, and the idea again is just to say your name and how you're feeling and why you chose to come here today. And we'll be back here in 10 minutes with you. Here you go.
all right. Aloha. See you soon.
Announcement. Everybody will be back in about 1 minute. If anybody wants to say anything here and check in, you're welcome to do that. You can just unmute yourself and say how you're feeling. Say hello to one another and to the whole world. You're welcome to do that, or you're welcome to be quiet, your choice. Hi, Odile.
Extremely grateful. Sorry.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Jori.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Go ahead, Purva.
Hi, Odile. I'm so grateful to be here. Lately, I've been finding it difficult to get out of bed. It's about 7:30 and I should have been up by 6. But I'm happy I made it today.
Whoops.
Me
I'm
too.
happy you did too. Whoops.
Yes, my camera doesn't like it when I moved so much.
Okay, well, I'm glad it was your camera falling, not you.
Okay.
Welcome back.
I hope y'all had as much fun as we did. Would anyone like to check in here in the large group about maybe anything that's really alive in you that you want to be heard about, especially if there's something that is like a breakthrough with your communication that you've enjoyed in this past week, something that really worked for you or anything like that, a particular problem. Love to hear from you if there's anybody that would like to share anything. Go ahead, Isabel.
Not something when you mentioned breakthrough, it just reminded me of something that I did over the weekend that I wanted to celebrate. And it is we just celebrated a 5-day holiday for Thanksgiving in Korea. And every time these holidays come around, I think I relive my 30 years of married trauma, in which much falls upon the married woman to do the house chores. I've known all this. It's always hard, but even now that all my parents, in-laws, and my own are gone, I still relive it. And there's a tension in the house. And Having studied collective trauma lately, I have come to recognize it, and I felt it in the air. My husband, my son tiptoeing around, even when there are just three of us. So at some point, and my son, inevitably, whenever he comes home, he's got a headache, he sneezes, he's got all these allergic reactions. And I suddenly thought this could be trauma. So what I did was I went to his room when he was half asleep, daytime, as usual, sick. And I said, son, my marriage has not always been easy, and I probably acted it out in many subconscious and conscious ways, and I'm afraid it has affected you. And I am truly sorry. I wish to let you know that none of it was your fault. I know how much you love me, how much you wanted to help me as a child, but you couldn't because you were only a child. And I know how difficult it has been for you. He's 32 years old now, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to undo that for you. I want you to be relieved. It's all mine, it's not yours.
Wow.
I wanted
Wow.
to celebrate that.
Yeah. How did he respond?
He just nodded. He was half asleep, but I'm hoping that in the years to come, I will replay it whenever I can. I want to really release him. Just, it's not all bad, and I'm sure there is a scientific reason as well for his allergy, but I'm afraid there is some truth to that as well, that I have contributed, and I want to relieve him.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, there's so much growth on this path. I've been on this path for over 20 years, and there's still opportunities for growth. I'm not done yet, just like Monty Python said. I'm not done yet. It's still on the dance. And that's what we do here. We're bringing everybody together to dance together in our own way and see what we can learn. And Patricia, you have something you'd like to share? Good.
I would just like to address my comments to Isabel, which I put up my head and she disappeared from my screen. Where are you, Isabel?
I'm having a hard time understanding you. Would you move closer to your mic?
Yes, I just wanted to address my comments to Isabel,
Okay.
and I don't see her on the screen. I put my head up and then somehow I lost her.
Oh, she's there.
Here, I'm listening, Patricia. I'm listening.
I think it's absolutely monumental what you shared. And there's something in me that just wanted to give you kudos and credit and hold you tight and say, go girl.
Thank you.
Monumental.
I hear it. I feel it. Thank you for the hug.
Thank you. And Sarah Joy?
I ditto what Patricia said, Isabel, and am constantly working on relationships with my son and my brother, of all the people in my family. And NVC has given me great success with my son, especially. With my brother, I recently had a success after many years of no success. And it was, it's because partly he's younger than me, but maybe doesn't feel that he gets the respect that he feels he deserves, especially in the area of health. He's a doctor, and we have opposite views on certain things. I use naturopathic medicine. He's Western medicine and really doesn't believe in the naturopathic stuff. So I feel like I'm walking on eggshells when I talk to him about things. And we both share an interest in my 90-year-old mom, whose health at this time isn't the greatest. And recently I've gotten closer to her, and she's sharing more to me, but I can't do the health part, so I need his help. And I don't want to tell him what to do. So I tried to have an NVC conversation with him where I just basically said that she was telling me such and such, and I looked it up for her. And then I noticed, something that the three things that she had symptoms for were also related to the thyroid. And I was just curious if she had had any thyroid tests recently. He was really calm about all of that. It wasn't like I was normally urgently worried about her. And, he doesn't need all the stress in his already busy, stressful life. And so I was calm. And then I was just noticing something and then asking him a question. And I also didn't have any outcome, like if he said no or yes or whatever, I wasn't really, you know, counting on a specific answer. And he was interested in following up on it, and also in getting her a primary care doctor that she hasn't had since she moved from Seattle to New York. Because I mentioned that she told me that she didn't have one, and she said that she missed her primary care doctor. But I didn't tell him he needed to get her one, which maybe I would have in the past. I might have told him what I thought he should do, and then he would be pretty mad at me. So I feel like that's using some NVC, and we ended on a good note. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, you found a way to stay connected and support her at the same time. Lovely. Thank you.
And Siva?
So I, I too am amazed at what Isabel shared. It's really awesome. And I put in the chat this book that I just started reading. It's called A Brief History of Misogyny, the world's oldest prejudice. So I think the concept of prejudice is what underlies really the thinking of the founder of NVC, is the story that Marshall Rosenberg tells right up front in his book, how he was called a kike and he didn't even know the word, and he was beat up, and it just raised such a question in him. And just because you're identified as belonging to some group, whether it's a group of females or particular religion or nationality or skin color, or I mean, we have so many ways of dividing people up. It's so toxic, and it's the same solution always, because all of these are inhuman in terms of humanity.
Yeah.
So there's a book that I think will resonate with all of us.
Thank you very much, Siva. I appreciate the recommendation. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen with you.
Did you mute her first?
Yeah, sure. Just mute you so that for the recording.
Right.
So share my screen with you, and we'll do a little review about what we've been covering the last few weeks. For those of you who might be here for the first time, today we're going to be working on integrating the 9 skills. And if you said, what the hell are the 9 skills? Well, we're about to teach you what they are. So this is the review portion. So you'll see here that this is like a little map that we're going to be using for the next couple of weeks or so. And these are some NVC skills. They really help us to navigate both peace and conflict. And it sounds like, Isabel had a direct experience of using some of these skills in her conversation. And so in the middle there, you see this thing called 0 step. And 0 step, it just refers to 2 particular elements of what happens before you decide to use nonviolent communication. One is intention. In NVC, we learn that that the intention is to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. Or a shortcut way of saying it is to make life wonderful. So that's the intention of NVC. Attention in NVC is in the present moment. Rather than talking about the past and rehashing things, we talk about what's going on right here and right now in our relationships. Even though the past may give us some sort of stimulus or something to launch with, we keep the attention on the present moment. And rather than going off and trying to plan for some anxious future, just bring it back to the present. When we do that, when we have this intention to connect and attention in the present moment, there's a natural openness to outcome that comes up. And that's what that just naturally happens. That's what we call the 0 step. So this is the center point from which all the other skills intuitively emerge from. So it's not like there's steps that you have to follow. You're really learning to trust yourself. NVC for me is a process of self-trust. And so some of the skills that you might be led to use as you enter into a dialogue with somebody, you might want to invite the dialogue. It's just a way of letting the other person know that you're interested in connecting. Another way of talking about it would be a bid for connection, in the words of John Gottman, another psychologist that's contributed a lot to relational healing. So that's just learning some skills to how to invite a dialogue or connection. Another skill that can happen would be empathy. This refers to the ability to use your ears and your heart in order to deeply listen to another person. Self-empathy, you use the exact same skills, only your attention is on yourself. Gratitude, we had a direct experience of gratitude in Jori's self-connection exercise, and that's a way that can also help us to create and sustain connection. And then honesty is when we are clear about what we would like to say to the other person. We want to express what's alive in us, what we're feeling, what we're needing, what we're requesting, and so forth. That's the honesty part of NVC. And we've been practicing the last few weeks about how important it is when we use our honesty skill that we learn to end on a clear and present request. And so far we've covered feedback. A feedback request would be the very natural one we often use in conversation. I say what's alive in me, and I say what comes up for you when you hear that. I want to hear your feedback about what I've said. So that's a feedback request. And the other one is a confirmation request. This is when I want to make sure that the message that I have sent to you was received to you, not as a quiz to make sure you got it right, but to make sure that I was clear in getting across what I wanted to say. So that's 8 of the 9 skills you'll see. So today we'll fill in the blanks on this last skill here, which is called an action request. But to help us get there, think about a kind of support that you would like to ask somebody for. So in other words, think of a request that you would like to make of somebody else. You could choose something with a very low level of intensity. You know, like maybe you'd like to ask another family member to do a chore.
Can even be you might ask somebody to come and share a cup of coffee or just some time together with you.
So think about what you'd like to ask for and who you would like to ask. And it's helpful to write these down, because you'll be referring to them as we keep going through the rest of the class.
Jim, you're muted.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
So once you're clear on what you want to ask, you might, it's helpful to think about, why are you asking? And the why question in nonviolent communication is always going to point us to a need. So what need are you hoping the other person can help you contribute to?
Yeah, it's what's motivating that request. And then you can just drill down when you know what's motivating that request. So what's the deeper meaning of that? So what's motivating the request is, oh, I was just thinking I wanted to go get a cup of coffee. Ah, so what's underneath that? Why? Why? What's the need under there?
Maybe it's about connection, or maybe it's about self-expression or empathy. Only you know the need that's motivating your request.
And you know that it's the need when there's sort of an aha that happens when you connect to it. Ah, I want to go have a cup of coffee with someone because I want to have some companionship. And if I had companionship, what would that do? Well, then I'd have someone to talk to. And if I had someone to talk to, and you just keep going, what's the deeper meaning of that? Ah, connection. So just keep drilling down until there's that, ah, yeah, that's what really matters.
Of course, there's no right or wrong answer to this question. This is just your own intuition about the motivation. So like if I wanted to get a family member to help with some chores, like let's say we had company coming over for a dinner, and I wanted to ask Jori to maybe, I don't know, set the table. And so why would I want Jori to set the table? What's the need? Well, I just like some partnership. Well, if I got that quality of partnership, what would that mean to me? Well, there would be a sense of mutual support, and maybe it would even be fun. We would be playing together, and so forth.
Or some ease, support. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what's it about for you? Just leave this up here for a minute of silence while you think about different requests. If you finish this one and you could think of other requests that are important to you to make with people, why are those requests important to you? Any questions about what we've done so far? Or if anybody needs some support in connecting to the need that's motivating your request?
Maybe if you can put it in the chat what that need is, just to have that sense of awareness and connection.
You see, Jori just modeled it for you, right? She said what she'd like you to do, and she said why it was important to her. So
security, acceptance, cooperation, connection, respect, emotional safety. So just notice when you hear those words, whether those are the needs up for you or not. There's a certain resonance of our shared humanity. We all need safety. We all need support, ease, consideration. Mutuality, support, beauty, organization, interdependence, connection, harmony, compassion. Just notice as you hear these words, whether those are the needs alive in you or not. It's my experience, maybe yours as well, of just that humanness to it, that basic being of our, what we call needs, not from a needy place, but from our basic being, that there are certain things we need to survive and thrive.
Anybody got any questions about what we've done so far? Anybody a little stuck or anything? You could also write that in the chat, or you could raise your hand. If you don't know how to raise your hand, at the bottom of your screen, there's a little smiley face that says reactions on it. And you can click that and it'll open up a little menu and it says raise hand there. That's how we can keep track of you. Okay, not seeing any questions. So now you've got some of the elements for actually beginning to have a conversation, but we want to make sure that this request you make you have a pretty high likelihood of getting connection when you make the request. And so I'd like to invite us to go back to the small groups for you to consider your own. Some of you will have more access to the answer to this question than others because you've been studying NVC longer. If you don't know the answer to these questions, you can just chat about what your guesses are about the answer to the question. But the question is, what do you imagine would make a request more likely to lead to connection? Let me put that into the chat for you. What do you imagine? Oops.
Whoops.
I gotta move this over
Yeah,
here so I
you
can
do
type.
that. That's good. We're laughing because he was typing but not looking and his hands weren't right where they belonged. Became funny.
When I say what do you imagine would make your request more likely? You can't move that while I'm typing.
Okay.
I mean, there must be something about a request that makes it more likely to lead to connection. So if my request to Jori, for example, sounded like this, it probably would not lead to much connection. You told me you were going to take the garbage out and you didn't do it, so go take it out right now. So that's a request, right? But it doesn't have very much connection built into it. So what's missing from my request would be another way of looking at it. And we're going to put you back in small groups so you can talk about it in your own experience. What makes requests more likely to be connecting? And we'll do this for about 10 minutes again. And the idea is you'll come up with one or two ideas, maybe 3 or more ideas of what these elements of a request might be.
Any questions before you go that you need answered to make sure you know what you're doing? Okay.
Okay, same time frame, 9 minutes. Many people have been, there were some requests to change groups, so mix people up a little bit, have a little variety. And
Hey, Jim,
yeah,
just a quick question. based on example you just did to Jerry, wondering what's the connection request you would do to her about the trash.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll save the answer until you get back. I don't want to give away the answer. I want you guys to have to struggle a little bit
Yeah, the whole idea of this exercise is to figure out how you might say it.
in your own words,
In your own
rather
words.
than how Jim and Jori
right,
did.
in a way that would be connecting rather than a sense of demand or just something that would be triggering a disconnection as opposed to deeper connection.
Okay, does that work for you?
Yes, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Here we go. Okay.
Hey, welcome back. Zoom, zoom.
So if you came up with some ideas about what makes requests effective to create connection, you can raise your hand and we can collect a few, or you can put them in the chat. And then I'll do the little demo. Go ahead, Corey. Can't hear you yet, Corey.
You're still muted, sweetie.
Jeanette was calling in from the hiking trail in Santa Barbara, I think, and she had a real live need for this information. It was so perfect. So she's talking and walking, and she just had about 15 guys on dirt bikes come up behind her, and she could hardly find any space to get out of the way. And it was potentially life-threatening or, injurious for her. So they were already gone. So we just talked about what she could say to the person in charge of Parks and Rec, and it was great. I don't know if she's listening in, but one of the things, so what we came up with was first having a dialogue rather than just telling, like sounds more like a demand. So involving the other person, asking, in the request somehow. And another thing, let's see, we came up with was asking if they have any input, not just our side. So that's kind of like involving them, but in a different way. And in her case, she needed some information to find out if there's rules that they should not have been there, And so I don't know if that's just getting information, getting clarity maybe first. I don't know. So that's pretty much it right now. And Jeanette could add more, but it was very timely.
Okay, good. Thanks for the suggestions, and we'll flesh them out after we hear from Tanya and Renee. Go ahead, Tanya.
Can I go off track a little bit?
As far as I
there
can
was
tell.
some real there was some pretty interesting questions that arose, and one of them was what happens when someone makes a choice that we used your example of the garbage thing. We went with that one. And so what happens if someone later on makes a choice that they're not going to take the garbage out? And so where do I lay on the continuum of community and connection and autonomy and choice?
Yeah.
And how do I navigate that? So I thought that was a really great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe you're going to go there later, but I just thought I'd put it out there for now.
That is a critical element of an effective request that you just pointed at. So definitely we'll talk about that. And Renee?
Hi, thank you. I think the biggest lesson I've ever learned, and I'm still learning it, is in making a request to understand the possibility of a no. Many times when I make requests, I am assuming that the person's going to say yes, because it makes my life more wonderful. And the phrase that seems to work the best in my situation, in my experience, has been, would you be willing? And I find my family members to even say that to me, would you be willing?
Yes.
And it gives them the breath. If I say, would you be willing I want to leave tomorrow to New York City. So I want to leave at 10. And I said to my husband, would you be willing to leave at 10 o'clock? And he took a pause before answering me to figure out in his head. And he answered yes, that he would. The question that comes up for me is, we've been married 25 years. And the chances of leaving at 10 based on previous history is probably slim to none. And so I've got an agreement, and I think his heart is in the agreement, but the actuality, if I'm going to predict the future, just say what would happen if the agreement isn't held. Then what do I do in an NVC way? I know what I would do as Renee, but I would really love to hear what would then be the next steps.
Good question. Good question. And I think it might get clearer as we keep practicing. But rather than give away the whole story here, we'll do it one little piece at a time.
And if we don't sufficiently respond to that question, please come back to it.
Yeah.
At the end, but I think we will.
So let me share the screen with you again, and we will uncover these critical elements that many of you have pointed out in what you've said so far. And so now the interesting thing for me is that if you think about the requests that we've already been working on, we've already been working on 3 requests. If you've been at previous classes. One was the inviting request. The other is a feedback request. And the other is a confirmation request. All of those 3 kinds of requests that we worked at have these 5 elements built into them. And so the one that everyone got to so far was openness to outcome. This is really the definition of a request that makes the distinction between a request on the one hand and a demand on the other. If I'm not open to outcome and I ask Jori to take the garbage out and then she doesn't do it and I want to punish her for that, I want to give her the cold shoulder, I want to criticize her or judge her or tell her that she's lazy or she never keeps her agreements or all those kinds of punitive measures, those are all about me not making a request. Even if I said it in perfect NVC terms, I might have even said, hey, Jori, I'm really needing some support, and I'm longing for a sense of shared responsibility here with you, and I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed. So would you be willing to please take the garbage out? And if she says no, and I want to harm her, then I know I've made a demand, even if I said it all in so-called perfect NVC.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's number 1, openness to outcome.
And we'll suffer. I mean, if it's really about our own well-being, to take care of ourselves, to get clear so that we're not suffering when we don't get exactly what we ask for, where we stay open enough to be able to see there might be some other choices or the choice to give ourselves empathy.
And if you think about those 9 skills that we've been working on, and remembering what we said about the 0 step, that if we're present to what's actually happening right now, and we long to connect rather than to get our way, then we'll naturally open to outcome. So if we focus here on 0, or on putting our giraffe ears on, as Marshall used to say it, then we're much more likely to stay in request consciousness than to shift into demand consciousness. And that'll help us to be open to outcome. And so another element that we kind of gave you at the very beginning was this idea of being connected to needs. When we asked you, why do you want this request? Then we asked you to connect to needs before making it. Now notice we don't have a personal pronoun in front of the word needs, because if you put a personal pronoun like my, I want you to meet my need for support, it starts moving into demand territory pretty quickly. We can turn any need into a strategy if we personalize it. If I think that Jori is the only strategy for me to get any of my needs met, then we're both going to suffer in the relationship.
Mhm.
But I still would like to enlist her support in getting needs met, just like I want to give support to getting needs met that might be alive in her. They're not her needs, they're needs that we share.
Mhm.
So that's the number one piece of having an element, a request that supports connection.
Yeah, if we're really connected to needs, then we're aware that needs can be met in so many different ways. So that it's really letting us know if we're connected to that internal, broad place of being where every need can be met in so many ways. We might have our favorite way, but we're less likely to suffer if we connect to why.
So then another important element is that it's stated in the positive.
Yes.
So if my request has a negative in it, it's not likely to be very connecting. So if I just note, let's say I just finished washing the floor, and I have here in Hawaii we take our shoes off before we enter the house, and let's just say some guests from North America come to visit us in Hawaii, and I got the house just spick and span for them. Because you want people to have the belief that you're cleaner than you actually are, and so my guests arrive, and they come walking into the house wearing their shoes, and I say, "Don't walk in here with your shoes on." Imagine you're the guest.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel when your host tells you don't do something?
Especially something you're doing already.
You've already done it, right? So if you state it in the negative, you're really likely to stimulate guilt, shame, maybe even depression or anxiety, because it's not stated in the positive.
Not only that, but there's this sort of void. What do you do when someone says don't do something? It's like, what do I do?
And so by stating it in the positive, we actually do the NVC work for the other person. We tell them exactly what we would like them to do behaviorally, and avoid doing it by using negative terminology. Everything about nonviolent communication is oriented towards the positive.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll, when you're coming from zero and you're present, then you're much more likely to stay positive mm-hmm. with that. Which is the third element, is that requests that are connecting are right now. Mm-hmm. So if somebody had an example about tomorrow morning, would you be willing to leave at 10? That's not a request. It's
a wish.
It's some kind of a wish because it's happening in the future. Mm-hmm. But when you said, I think it was Renee, when Renee said, how would you feel about leaving at 10 o'clock in the morning? That's a feedback request. Mm-hmm. That is something that he or she can respond to right now. Maybe the whole thing would sound like, hey, Jori, tomorrow morning I'd like to get to the doctor's appointment at 11. So I say what the observation is, mm-hmm. and I'd really like some support in getting there on time. Otherwise, it's just kind of a little bit embarrassing for me if we arrive late. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about leaving at 10 o'clock in the morning, what do you think that's possible?
Yeah, so I have a choice of yes, and I only want to give that yes if it's authentic. Or I could say, I'll do my best.
Yeah. And so, but now I've got feedback because she could answer my request now. So then if I want to keep it going, and now it's tomorrow and it's 9:30 in the morning, I could do a confirmation request. Hey, Jori, I'm noticing it's about 30 minutes before it's time to go. And yesterday we agreed to leave at 10. So, and that's in order to, really make sure that we get there on time. So are you connected to what's important to me about this?
Yeah, you really want to make sure we leave by 10.
Yeah, so does this seem possible, given where, as you look around, do you think we can pull it off?
I think so.
So confirmation request first, then feedback request. Okay, both of those are in the present. There's a lot that can happen in a half an hour. But right now I've got some reassurance that we're at least on the same page. And I can repeat that at 5 minutes till 10, or as many times as I want to. I can make lots of clear and present requests that are much more likely to get everybody's needs fed. And then the final element of a request is that it's concrete and specific. So if here's something that happens a lot socially. You run across somebody in the street that you haven't seen in a while because maybe, everybody's been hiding because of COVID, and now we're starting to come out into the light of day again. And so we see a friend that we haven't seen in a long time, and we say something like, "Oh, I've really missed you. I know we've all been kind of hiding, and it would be so much fun to connect again." So see, I'm connected to needs, and I'm kind of moving towards the positive here, and I'm, and right now I think it would be really fun for us to get together, and we should have lunch someday.
Okay.
Right?
That's
So it's vague. What does someday mean? Where are we going to go for lunch? What time? What day? It's not concrete and specific. But if I want,
I said okay, it was like out in the ether. I had no sense when or how or even if that would actually happen. Oh, that's an idea.
yeah. But if I say if I use a feedback request first, then I can get more clarity. So I notice I've got an open date on my calendar next Thursday at lunch, and I was planning to go into town anyway to eat. How do you feel about joining me?
Well, I'll look at my calendar and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, is there any way that you could look at it right now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, so I stuck with it so that I could get my request met right now, and that it was concrete and specific. Next Thursday at noon is what she's checking. And again, a lot can happen between now and next Thursday, so we don't know what's really going to happen, but at least we can get clear on our calendar dates by using feedback requests and maybe even confirmation requests. So I could say, okay, I've got it down on for noon next Thursday. How about you? What do you have?
Yeah, that's what I have, noon on Thursday.
Great. So that's a confirmation request. So we pause there to see if anybody has any questions, especially you, Renee, since you provided us great fodder for this exploration.
I really appreciate that you pointed out that it was a wish, that anything that's happening not in the present is in concrete, it's a dream that I'm having, and anything can happen in 24 hours. And so asking a person more about, well, how would they feel about that? Would they consider it? Is that something, in the realms of possibility? And then the next day, continuing to confirm it. And I guess it's being open, because if it doesn't happen, it's if it doesn't happen, then I guess then it's turning towards self-empathy.
Yeah.
Right? Journey, because it's too late for me to already do plan B, which is go myself.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that the capacity to be open to outcome is such a personal gift to ourselves, because otherwise we suffer.
yeah, and it's really the heart of nonviolence. I mean, if you really take it out to the extreme level, and you think about, Rosa Parks getting onto that bus in 1962 or whenever that was, when she made a request to sit at the front of the bus rather than the back of the bus, where Black people were required to and expected to sit. And so she said, I'd rather sit here. and she was willing to take whatever happened. So that was her nonviolence. She was willing to receive a no and receive the consequences of that no, which weren't pretty for her. And same with the people that sat at the lunch counter at Woolworth, or the people that did the march at the bridge in Birmingham, and so forth. All these different nonviolent actions that inspire us so much. These were all people who were making requests and hearing a violent no. And in the face of a violent no, or even a nonviolent no, we're not getting our needs met, then what's left for us is mourning. We call it mourning. We just mourn the natural pain of not having a need satisfied. So if I go to the local grocery store and I've got my heart set on Alden's chocolate chip ice cream, organic, and I walk in and they don't have it, and that's the only kind that I really want to eat, then all I can do really is mourn that. I made a request, they said no, so I mourn.
Either that or he suffers.
Yeah.
Those are our two choices.
Yeah. So I want to check in with you in just a second, Corey, because you brought something up. But first, Donna. Go ahead, Donna.
I think Steva's hand was faster than mine. But...
I saw that, but I want to hear from you first.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. So it seems that when we are asking about something to happen in the future, basically we are not, so the request is to confirm our intention. It's not about confirming our action for the future, but let's confirm our intention right now to do it with this openness that it might not.
Exactly.
Because that's life. The car breaks down, or, something else, someone else needs immediate support or something else.
Yes. And
so that's the best we can do. It's in the future. We don't have full control over it.
Yeah. I remember when I first realized that, to me, it was like, there's no more promises. The concept of promise doesn't exist anymore if you are in this kind of consciousness.
Right. You can promise again to the best of your ability, but you cannot predict. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a painful story about that myself, in that Jori and I were planning to go to the Los Angeles IIT this year.
Yeah.
And we went to, 24 meetings planning this IIT with our team and so forth. And we had every time we go, we would confirm that we were intending to go. And then when it came time to actually buy the tickets, the COVID situation had changed to a point where it no longer worked for us. So we said no to the team, that we were not going to go. But we said our no in Giraffe. We said we're willing to continue to come by Zoom, which is what ended up happening. And we're also willing to help you find a replacement for us to come in person, which we did.
Did both.
And so because making agreements is important to us and keeping agreements is important to us, we wanted to figure out how to say no to their request that we come, and say yes to our needs for safety, and also to maintain our needs around supporting the team and having a full team. Yeah.
Yes, and also I noticed my overwhelm with this, that our society is based on agreement upon agreement, signing documents and all of this contracts. And it's like, wow, how to hold this consciousness and be practically living it while there is one sign after another. It's just like, my life project.
Yeah, mine too. I mean, as mediators, we live by agreements. And agreements are very similar to requests. A lot of these same 5 elements that we talked about are important in making agreements too. And you use feedback requests and confirmation requests to get to an agreement that works for everybody. So like if we're doing a mediation and we're gonna do, we're mediating a couple, and they're gonna be talking about maybe child support payments or something like that. And so one part of the couple will make a proposal to the other part. I'll give you X dollars a month. And so we will take that request over to the other person, and we'll try to frame it in the needs. and we'll say this is how much they're willing to give you. Would that work for you? That's a feedback request.
Mm-hmm.
And then we trust that they will check in their own experience, and we might even push a little bit extra. That was a pretty quick yes. Can you just make sure, like, how is this going to affect your tuition payments for your kids' school next month, or the uniforms, or whatever it is?
Yeah, or just, are you sure? Just to give them a moment to think about that.
And so we keep using feedback requests to help get to an agreement that works for everybody. Does that make sense, Donna?
Oh, it does. It's just, yeah, I'm familiar with mediation myself. It's just that I know that I fall into this wall. No, I fall or hit the wall again and again when people said that, but I want, you promised.
Yes.
I cannot trust you. It's so much is in our society sticking to the promise that we want it so much. And with this consciousness, it's a long way. It's not a dot, it's not a point, it's just a that or comma with continuosities.
Yeah, and we're looking at 9 skills, and one of those skills is to have some self-empathy in that moment, for us to be able to do that, or empathy with the other person if they're suffering because of the way things have come about. So there's a variety of skills we're working on here, but we can't really predict that we can even do what we say we'll do, even when we've fully committed to it.
Sarah Joy, and then we'll check in with Siva and Corey.
I'm going to ask, it's similar to what Renee was talking about. And the example is whenever I would be wanting to go somewhere with my ex, there used to be an issue about time. And we finally went to counseling, and the counselor suggested that my ex, I was the one who was late or not able to be on time to a dot, which was always, even when you're on vacation, like leaving at such and such a time. And so the counselor said, well, why don't you, would you be willing to accept a request for him to remind you, every 15 minutes or an hour before or a half hour before? And I said yes. And I'm wondering if that's one of the
Beautiful
feedback requests.
Yes.
Another example of that. And so, like, when it was 15 minutes away, he would 15 minutes and then 5, and then it was much more successful than anything else. And I just felt I had choice, and I'm just not keeping track of time as well as another person. And rather than it being a shaming thing, and the whole vacation is wrecked when there's this argument before you leave for vacation, you were 2 minutes late, or you were whatever, or we might miss the ferry, and then we get there and we have to wait 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours because the ferry's late, or that kind of thing.
You got it.
So, so thank you. That's
perfect example.
Thank you.
Siva, do you have a question or something about requests?
I think so. I'm trying to make a picture that would help me understand. And this is a picture that I'm seeing. And I don't know if it's appropriate or would be helpful. So right now I see you and 2 people. I see Jim and Jori. And so Jim makes a request to Jori, and Jori says whatever. So what I'm seeing is that this connection, this agreement exists outside of both of you. So it's a connection. So I see 2 circles here, and then a circle up here that is the connection, that is the agreement. So it's part of making the marriage stronger or
Yeah.
making the friendship stronger
Yes.
by piling up a whole history of successful connection.
That makes sense to me, Siva. That makes sense. Yep. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So Corey, you mentioned some ideas about requests earlier, and I wonder how the ideas that we have talked about so far land for you.
Yeah, I like them a lot. And I wonder if Jeanette's back. She was the one in danger, so to speak. Yeah, I'm thinking if, I guess tomorrow she's going to call the guy in Parks and Rec, and it would definitely be a good idea to, use these things that you come up with. I think they're all really useful.
Yeah.
And feedback requests, really important. And would he be, maybe she'll end up with a request, like, I don't know what it might be. She's worried that she's going to get hit. She almost got hit by a bunch of guys on dirt bikes behind her on a downhill trail, and no space to kind of move off it. So I haven't seen that. I don't know who owns the property. It sounds like it's public land, but this is where, when there's something like that, where there's a clear safety issue, and I've been involved with my city, I just wonder, because sometimes, let's switch it just a little bit. If there's a place where people have gotten injured and a lot of people that live there think we need a stop sign there, people have gotten injured, almost killed. So you go to your city and you let them know, and maybe you document it. But at what point, I think that energy would be demand energy, rather than request, because.
Okay, so let me see if I can clarify. Let me see if I can clarify that. It's a distinction between demanding and persisting. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
Well,
when we use the word demanding in NVC land, at least when I use it, and I think Jori is in harmony with me, and probably most trainers, demand is always linked to punishment.
Right.
By definition. So if your friend or Jeanette is going to punish people for not giving her what she wants, she's making a demand. But if she's going to go and persist with the need for safety, and maybe she's going to end up advocating to the county council or the National Park Service or Congress or the Supreme Court, however far up she needs to go to persist with her need, that's not demanding. That's persisting. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have one other little thing, because I was involved with my city, and sometimes they don't want to do things because they, have their agenda. They don't get it, or they prioritize other things. So we had 16 people working on an ecology thing, health and safety issue. And the only way we could get movement, they wouldn't even listen to us. They put us at the end of the agenda, 12 midnight, we got heard. All these tactics to move us out of the way. So it wasn't until we said, and it was an election year for them. So it's not harm, but the reality is, if you want our vote, this is what we want you to do. We want to be heard. We want, etc. We had all of our lists. We were very cordial, but we were very firm that this is really that important. So do you see that as harm to say, I won't vote for you?
No.
Only you would know that, Corey.
No, there's a difference between a demand and a request. They may look the same, but when it's a demand, you're not open to outcome of how else you meet the need.
We were not open to not having this dealt with, though. We were not.
So just to notice that was a demand, that was the only way you were willing to get the safety. So the difference is, what we do is we focus on why we want it, and then find a way to meet the needs, rather than just, it has to be this way, because there are so many ways.
Yeah, exactly. And we did that with lots of research, and we got people who were expert witnesses. We really did the why big time, and then we did win, but it took like 6 months.
Yeah.
But so I was just trying to understand that, because sometimes when something is a life issue or a health issue that's really dire, you really have to push hard, you know, when it's city people or government, you do to be heard. And so I'm glad you clarified that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. And then quickly, Jeff, you have something?
Then we need to move to practice again, so you
Yeah.
get one more chance to practice
Yeah,
today.
but go ahead, Jeff.
I just wanted to express gratitude because this is a new way of thinking for me. When at first I was, you know, when you were saying what's a request that you would like to make, it's like, am I going to get something done that I want done? Am I going to get help with something I need help with or whatever? But then the switch to, you know, how can I make the request about making connection and bringing about connection? That was a good mind switch for me. But then the reality hit that sometimes people are not going to want connection. And the acceptance of outcomes, or the openness to outcomes and acceptance. Like I have 3 teenage daughters that don't want to necessarily connect, you know, and so yeah, just the reality of that, and I'm grateful for the chance to be thinking in a different way, because I definitely was very much into demands in the past, and thank you. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, they may still have demands, but you don't have to have a demand. You can be open
And you can be persistent.
and persistent.
If they
right.
don't like your strategy of connection, you can come up with good pizza party or something they're going to like. I guarantee you, you're a creative guy. So let's go back to groups, and here now go back and clarify your request using these 5 elements. So make sure, and you can help each other out
Can you copy that?
I'm
and
going
put
to
it
copy
in
it
the
and put
chat?
it into the chat. Yes,
Perfect.
exactly. So I'll put these 5 elements into the chat, and then you can, you'll have, again, only 10 minutes to do this. So I'm not sure you'll all get a chance to do it. Okay, I'm going to have to do it one at a time. So we'll do it for 10 minutes. And the idea, again, is to...
Here, let me do it while you're talking.
Sure. That didn't help.
No, that didn't help.
Okay, now you turn my mouse upside down. Okay, here we go. Okay. Oh boy.
Oh boy. Okay.
So we'll send them to you in the chat once you get to your group. That way you can go ahead and start practicing. So we'll do it again for 10 minutes and help each other out. Polish your requests. And here you go.
We live on Maui. What can you say?
Okay. So maybe you made a little progress in getting clear on your request. If there's anybody that has any celebrations about clarity, I'd love to hear them. Probably don't have too much time for troubleshooting, but we could also do that. I'd love to hear about something that you learned today that you're taking away. If anybody has somebody, especially if you haven't spoken yet, love to hear more voices. But what are you taking away? Go ahead, Cecilia.
Cecilia, hi.
Yes, thank you. Well, for me, I'm with Jeff. I have teenage kids, and today I asked my daughter to, clean the dishes, her dishes that she left in the sink, and I heard a no. So one thing that I've learned, first of all, is just being self-aware of how triggered I get. When I get a no, I felt really angry and I was ready to go to a jackal mode. And I didn't want to go there. So I kind of froze. There was a gap between hearing the no. Fortunately, I didn't go into jackal, but I needed time to go back to 0 step. So I came back to my bedroom because it was just the time I needed. Right. And I just realized, I think from this practice today, like my intention next time is I just realized that was not connecting to her needs. She's going to travel tomorrow. She has a lot to get lot of stuff to get organized, and I think she's a little overwhelmed, and I was just giving her a chore on top of all the things she has to do.
Mhm.
So my intention next time, to see if I can step out of my freezing and the jackal, it's just giving her some empathy, and maybe as a following step, see if there's room for us to co-create a new strategy. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. It's beautiful. I feel inspired and appreciative of the shift you've made there. And Juliana.
Thanks for the support. Yeah.
And Juliana?
Yeah, so I'm grateful today for the learning on the difference between demand and persist. And how demand is connected to punishment. Okay, and persist is more open-ended and connected to need, really. It's connected to my need. And so I can, which is important, so I can think of so many strategies, not just one strategy to get my need met. So thank you so much for that. Yeah. And the need, being the request being around the need, really, the importance of that. And when I express my need, even as I make my request, it kind of opens the other person's heart to understanding me and connecting to my need, as well as, and even when if they are saying a no and they share their need, it opens my heart to understanding them. When I hear the yes, as it were, underneath.
Yeah, you hear what they're
Thank you.
saying yes to. Thank you. And that is such a key gift of nonviolent communication, that there are so many, we all have the same needs, and we've all had them for so long, and that means that there are so many ways to get our needs met, so the world opens up instead of that narrow way. So thank you, Juliana, for pointing.
Thank you so much, Jori. Thank you, Jim. Yeah.
And Odile? Odile, you had your hand up. Are you unmuted? Did you have something you wanted to say?
No. No, I'm good. I was
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Anybody else have anything? Pooja said something in the chat, which is an interesting possibility. She says, what if you have a need for autonomy and she has a need for autonomy? So then no one does the dishes. Okay, so then we have dirty dishes. Okay, there are greater tragedies in the world than going to bed with dirty dishes in the sink. I'd much rather have a put together relationship that's built on compassion than a clean kitchen. So it's just a matter of priorities.
That's right.
That I want to prioritize connection over clean or dirty dishes. And I want to certainly honor Jori's autonomy. I might, so this goes back to the what happens when you don't get what you want. To channel the Rolling Stones here, you don't always get what you want, but you get what you need. So so let's say you go through the whole schmear. You start with 0, and I say, hey Jori, there's something up for me that I'd really like to talk to you about, and would you be willing to take 5 minutes to talk about it right now?
Sure.
She says, yeah. So I did the inviting. I go back to 0 and I say, okay, so what now comes up to me? Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. I noticed that, now I'm going to go to honesty. I noticed that yesterday we got entangled about who was going to do the dishes. And I feel some regret about how I showed up for that conversation, because I really like to show up without demand energy. And I think I got kind of pushy in demanding there. And I wonder how that was for you, how it is for you right now, as you remember it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you acknowledging that piece and acknowledging our freedom. Yeah.
Thank you. And I wonder if you have any ideas about how we could navigate this next time.
So you really would like to find a way to deal with us not doing the dishes when neither us want to do it? Is that it?
Not exactly. So thank you. It's more like I want to figure out what happens when we both have what seem like competitive needs for autonomy. I know they're not really competing, but I want you to do the dishes and you don't want to do them. how do you have any ideas on how we navigate that from now on?
It's such a generalized thing. I don't know that there's only one way to do it, but I really want us to be in a space where we can take some responsibility if we want the dishes done, and to give space for the other person to have choice. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? The dishes will be in there.
Yeah.
Actually, living on Maui, it could be there could be a lot of bugs. Okay, I'll do the dishes.
All right, well, that went well. I've never been so grateful for cockroaches in my entire life. Yeah. So in other words, you get to see on the map that in any given moment, you have lots of different choices that you can make about how you navigate the conflict. But if you stick around in these two areas here and add the gratitude, you stick around here and slow things down.
And what he's saying here, for those of you who might not see it, he's talking about requesting, action requests and feedback requests.
And confirmation requests and gratitude. So you kind of stick there to slow things down in order to get that quality of connection, so that what ends up coming out of that quality connection will support both parties, or the whole group, the whole family, the whole work team, whatever it is, in getting their needs met. So you slow down now so that you can go faster later, using all of these 9 skills. And we'll get more practice next week. And so somebody puts in the chat, what if Jori has a need for support? I trust that Jori can ask for her need for support, or maybe I empathize with it. Jori, you're just feeling exhausted, maybe jet laggy, so you just didn't have the energy. So that would be me empathizing with what might be alive in Jori. And so how would it be for you? I'm pretty tired too. How about we just let it be for tonight and just put a cover over the sink and hope for the best? Would that work for you tonight?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of filling it with water. So maybe, yeah. Okay, we have a couple
So
strategies.
we got a step.
We have a couple strategies. We have a way to go forward.
Yeah. So that's a great one, Odile or Odile. I know I'm not pronouncing your name right. I apologize.
No, it's Odile. Yeah.
Odile.
Odile. Okay.
So can you save that one for next week, and we can use that one for a role play next week. We can play with that, because we're at the point now where we start letting you know about what's going to happen next week and how to stay connected to us. So first, in the chat, Jori, you want to talk about this link here?
Which link there? That's my link for signing up for an appointment. You get access to my calendar, and you can choose a time for us to connect. And I love to connect with people, and I'm available if there's some way that I can support you. And so please make a note of it and know that I've got your back, and use that connection when you need it.
And I bet that's about meaning and purpose for you.
It is.
That you just love connecting with people, and
contribution is a really important thing for me. And some of you may not know this, but my early training was in social work, and it's about supporting people and their relationships, and their relationship to themselves as well as their relationships to others.
So if you're jammed up in a conflict, Jori can do role plays with you, or she can give you other practices that can help you to navigate your conflict.
Or if a conflict comes up and the other person is willing, we can do a mediation. So ask. I don't charge for my work. I allow donations to come in what works for you.
The second link that I put in the chat is if you're not getting our emails, we had a little email snafu and we lost about 1,000 names off our email list. If you're not getting emails anymore and you would like to, then you can click that link there and rejoin our email list. And you can also give it to anybody who's interested in it. We do record all of the calls every week, and we put them on our website, so it'll show up in a day or two at that link there. And right now there's probably close to 100 different recordings, lots of different topics about NVC. So if there's something that is of particular interest to you, you can probably find it on the website. And of course, there's also 500 other certified trainers that also offer all kinds of resources for handling some of these issues. So you get a different flavor as well. I wrote a book about a year ago. You can click on that link there and order it from lots of different places and get free shipping. This book is called Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. And thank you all for already buying it. And if you want to, you can buy another copy and give it to somebody that you really care for, or somebody that you don't care too much for and you want to fix them a little bit. You can, Jori said, like Jori said a minute ago, we do all of our work on a compassionate giving and receiving basis. In other words, the gift economy. So you can give money directly to us if you want to. We don't have any expectation, but we do enjoy the support that you give us to continue to do our work. And you can also directly support the Center for Nonviolent Communication, which is the organization that Marshall founded close to 50 years ago now. And it continues to do good work around the world.
And if you do give it to the Center for Nonviolent Communication, and you note that you did that through or your connection with us, let us know, because that actually supports us in having that be part of our yearly fee for being certified trainers.
And Corey, are you still here? You had an announcement that you wanted to make about John's class?
Well, is she here?
Maybe not. So I'll make the announcement. So John Kenyon, one of our, if you got the email this week, there was a link to his course, which starts very soon. It's especially, oh, Corey is here. Corey, go ahead.
I just put it in the chat. I think it printed up all right, but yes. So I can't say enough about John Kenyon's course, and he's does stuff very similar to Jim and Jori, where you get a lot of easy to follow instructions. That's what I get from you, Jim and Jori, and clear. You get visual, you get something in print, and he also has everything recorded, like demonstrations and so on. So these are 10 conversation maps, he calls them, that help with both internal and external challenges. Conflict, it sounds like a really big word. Some things are more just disconnection, but all the way to big conflict. And it's completely changed my life. I have to say, there's just so much healing. And so wanted to share that with everybody. And I also find it really helpful in my training. And I think it'd be excellent for certification candidates. So anything more you want to say about that, Jim?
Nope. That sounds great, Corey. Thank you very much for reminding us. And you might need to put it doesn't look like the link went into the chat, it just says click here. So if you could just put just the link to register, that might be helpful for people.
Yeah, it's in your email, but it sounds like everybody didn't get your email. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, that's true. And if you put it here, and if people are interested, that would help them to not have to go searching out to find out how to get it.
Okay, I'll see if I can get it. It didn't work.
I think it starts on the 19th.
It starts Tuesday, but you can join late if he said you can join late. So it starts tomorrow actually. Yeah. Tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but
someone put it in the chat for you.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rick and Phyllis have their hand up.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you do in-person sessions.
No.
Not yet. We'll probably do in-person sessions in a little while longer, but we're not quite ready yet. But we hope to be able to do practice groups again in person.
God, I can't believe he's saying that.
Well, hope springs eternal.
He's been very, very clear about that piece.
Yeah.
I don't know that I'm ready though.
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll keep you informed. I'm having so much fun on Zoom. I don't know that I have to do a hybrid next time if we start doing it in person.
Yeah, and so much of our work has been on Zoom anyway, because we live on an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So we're pretty used to working that way. I realize for other people it may not be as connecting.
Yeah. So we're at the end of this group. Next week, we'll continue the practice. We'll keep integrating these 9 skills, and we'll do that for a few weeks. And we have a special kind of practice that we'll introduce you to next week. It's a lot of fun for practicing these 9 skills. In the meantime, we'll end for today, but anybody who wants to stick around and go back to your small group and finish up any conversations, you're welcome to do that. And if you end up alone, we'll move people around so that you end up hanging out with somebody else. We call this the after party. So you're welcome to continue to hang out if you'd like to. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming. Aloha, everybody.
Aloha. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Ananda.
Thank you.